Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of History Before Us. And I am in the Lone Star State, the largest state in the United States, a hot state, but today is not as hot. I am in Dallas, Texas, at the Juanita Craft home. And I'm with Patricia, who knew Juanita Craft, who was a fearless civil rights leader amongst everything else in this community. And Patricia, you're going to show us through the house.
I am going to show you.
Give us some personal stories that you have, very fond stories that you have of this wonderful woman, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I want to do. But first, I just want to say the full name of the house is the Juanita J. Craft Civil Rights House and Museum.
There you go.
We opened here on May the 20th of 2023.
Okay.
But the house has actually been open since 1992.
Okay.
I believe. She left the house to the city when she passed. And so a few years ago, some people got together, formed a steering committee and then a board of directors, of which I'm a member. And we got busy raising money to open the house in the iteration you see today, which is the museum. And we just feel like this is really gives honor to Juanita Craft.
And you had mentioned offline before I hit record, your personal experience with her and all the fond memories of her. You say you met her when she was an older woman, about in her 60s or what have you. Can you tell us, what was it like being around this mammoth of a figure here locally, as well as nationally?
Okay, well, the circumstances under which I met Miss Craft weren't that great. My mother, who was originally from here, my dad was from New York. I spent the first 12 years of my life in New York City.
Okay.
In 1965, my mother became unable to take care of all of her children. So she sent two of them here to her brother and his wife, who lived right around the corner from this house. My aunt was a good friend of Juanita Craft's. They had taken hat making classes together. Hat making and seamstress work were two of Miss Craft's livelihoods that really helped to propel, to financially take care of her. Okay. That's what she kind of did for a living. And so Mrs. Craft always had directorship of the South Dallas NAACP Youth Council, of which I became a member on Monday, October 4th of 1965. But on the way from Love Field, my aunt, who picked us up, said to my brother and I have someone I want you to meet. And she brought us to this house. Now, we're in the big house, which that's what we called it. But there came a time in the 50s when Juanita Craft had been widowed and she needed income because activism pays nothing. And so she turned the 3 bedrooms into boarder rooms. So this house, she pretty much boarded out the bedrooms. She renovated her garage and turned that into being a woman quite before her time, a little house.
So she was Airbnb-ing it before it was being Airbnb.
But exactly, because she did board them too. She fed them and provided
so it's like a
roof.
B&B, Airbnb,
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so I met her in 1965. I was 12, and she was 63.
Okay.
And when my aunt first brought her here, the very first impression I had of Mrs. Craft was power. She was a large woman, but had she been 4 feet 10, she would have been a large woman.
Was there a feeling of, was there a grandmotherly feeling that you had around her, or was it something that was larger than that?
It was larger than that.
Based on what you knew about her?
It was larger than that based on, because my grandmother was still alive. My mother's mother was still alive then too. So we had a relationship with her as well. And they were very different people. Okay. Mrs. Craft was a very different woman for those years, for that time. Very forward, very unafraid, undaunted by men. You'll see many pictures of her in this house.
Yeah, and in the center. I'm looking at this one right here.
Where she's the only woman in the picture. You'll see many pictures where it's just women, which is this one right here, which she was the predecessor organization that she worked with before the NAACP was the Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. Okay. And that is where she kind of started her activism. In 1937, she joined the NAACP. So let's start over here with her parents, who were both educators. Both of her parents were teachers. Her father ended up teaching after being a grade school teacher and a traveling teacher. He actually taught at some of the Rosenwald schools here in Texas. Wow. And then her mother was a kindergarten teacher and a master seamstress and hat maker as well.
Okay.
And so her two parents were both educators, but both sets of her grandparents were slaves. Mm-hmm. So you can see how upwardly mobile her family was. One generation out of slavery, they have educators with college degrees in their family.
And she would have had a relationship
Yes.
with her enslaved, formerly enslaved grandparents.
Yes, so her mother developed tuberculosis the summer, well, it was coming, but it got really bad the summer Juanita Craft was 16 years old, which was the summer of 1918. And her and her father devised this plan for Mrs. Craft to take her mother to San Angelo, Texas, where there is a sanatorium, which is where you treated respiratory illnesses back in that time. They would not treat Juanita Craft's mother because of the color of her skin. But her father and her decided that she would stay, rent a tent. This is what Mrs. Craft did for the summer of 1918 at the age of 16. They rented a tent, her mother and her. She would go to the sanatorium almost on a daily basis and implore them to please treat her mother. They never would.
They never would.
She had to take her mother home and go back to school at the end of the summer because, of course, she was going to school. 9 days after she got home, her mother died. And in interviews I've read of Juanita Craft and interviews I've seen of her, this is what motivated her to her life of activism.
That's what jumpstarted.
Because at that point, she was able to see just how badly inequality could affect the quality of one's life. And so she decided that for the rest of her life, she would try to make sure that all people, and that is another thing about Juanita Craft, she didn't just think that her people needed these things. She knew that there were people of other colors who weren't receiving these things either. So this is a picture of her, that's her father. That gentleman right there with the cutoffs on.
Right here?
Is that gentleman over there with the bow tie. The gentleman to the right in the overalls was freed on Juneteenth here in Texas.
Wow.
That is her grandfather.
Beautiful.
And that is her grandmother there. And this is her mother's family, the Balfours. Those are the Shanks, and these are the Balfours.
And these are the Balfours.
And this is her mother right there, and that's her mother in the picture up there on the wall. And again, she passed at the age of about 36 in 1918 of tuberculosis.
Wow. And to think, in the term up from enslavement, up from slavery, right? Like just...
To think this gentleman, no, that's her brother. This gentleman was a slave.
Yeah.
Her grandmother was a slave. Both sets of her grandparents were slaves.
Yeah, both sets, yeah. Did she ever speak with you, or did you ever inquire when you were younger around her about this period in her life, going and living with formerly enslaved humans?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Honestly, I did not.
Okay.
Most of the real history I've learned about Juanita Craft has been since I've been back and working with this project.
And I'm sure your mind has been blown by all this stuff, right?
Right, because she didn't talk a lot about it.
Yeah. Humbled.
We had a couple of conversations about, I knew about her mother dying, because we did have a couple of conversations because I had mother issues, of course, because of the separation, and then coming here from New York to Dallas in 1965 was a culture shock.
Yeah.
I'm still traumatized. It was very different. So, but we had conversations about that, but most of our conversations were about what was going on in that day and the workings of the NAACP and the Youth Council. I was a secretary for 2 years. I was state youth secretary for 1 year, and so that was mostly what we talked about. But I did spend time up here with her. Good. Not just with the Youth Council, because she had a prolific garden in the back, and that very table right there, we used to can blackberries and tomatoes and green beans and crowder peas and stuff like that on. I'd come up here and help her pick the stuff, and we'd come in the kitchen and do all that. So there was times, and I'd come up here and help her clean the rooms, for when she would clean the rooms behind the borders and stuff. So I did spend time up here that wasn't just NAACP time.
Related, yeah.
But that's what we talked about.
Okay.
Because I was always fascinated with her philosophy about what was going on in the world, so.
Okay.
But so anyway, so we just come on around here and we just see some of the things. Mrs. Craft, we found out, was a prolific scrapbooker and just really a pack rat. She kept a lot of stuff that most people wouldn't keep. Articles, sale papers. This is a picture of the first day opening of the Lincoln High School, which was right here, which was the second African-American high school in Dallas, Texas. Booker T. Washington was the first. It was opened in 1922. My mother actually went to both the schools because she went to Booker T from the time she made it to high school till 1939. And when they opened Lincoln, they bused her from Oak Cliff to Lincoln is right at that end of South Dallas.
Okay.
And then James Madison is the high school I went to, and that's at this end of South Dallas.
Okay.
So this just talks about her early life on the farm. So after her mother passed, that year or so before she went to college, she lived with her mother's people. This is her baby picture, and these are just pictures of her. This is pictures of her with a cousin. This is a picture with something she put in her scrapbook. And these are pictures of farm animals and a cousin with a great big fish.
Yeah, I see that catfish. Wow. And to have these pictures, in which for some families it's difficult to, of course, track, pictures. But it looks like she was, like you said, she was a scrapbooker too. So
she has a whole huge archival vault in the Juanita Craft reading room at the main library in Dallas, Texas, the Eric Johnson Library.
Wow.
She also has a post office named after her here, a rec center, and a park.
Everything. So they're giving her just due locally.
They are.
That's what's up.
They are. And so what our mission here, and especially my own personal mission, is to spread her legacy.
For sure.
I want her to be a household name like Rosa Parks was.
Love it.
Now, I'm not sure if I can attain that before I leave here, but I'm going to do everything I can.
You're on the right track.
Because she did as much work as any of the ladies, which they deserve it.
Sure.
And so does she.
Yeah. I love it.
So this just kind of talks about her education at Prairie View. She went off to Prairie View with her childhood sweetheart, who they didn't last because he wanted a housewife, and Juanita Craft was not a housewife. She never had any biological children. She said that, I have no children, so I adopted the world.
Yeah.
And that's in essence what she did. These are her formal wedding pictures. That's John Langham, and that is Juanita Craft. This is a picture of her at Prairie View. And at Prairie View is where she was able to exercise her protesting feat. Because Prairie View at the time was in a very rural place. And in order to get supplies to the students, supplies like food and things for the classrooms, chalk, things like that, wood for the wood-burning fireplaces, the administration was supposed to send regularly to the train station to pick the stuff up, but they weren't doing that.
Yeah.
So oftentimes they'd be freezing in their dorm rooms, sharing whatever care packages they got from home, things like that. So Juanita Craft organized a protest, and that protest was where all protests usually work, is in the pocketbook.
This is true.
She had the students to withhold their tuition. And for the 2 years she remained at Prairie View, because this happened early on in her career there, for the 2 years she remained there, she never went without. I'm not sure what happened after she left, but while she was there, she made sure that they knew that that threat was always there. If you don't get us what we need, you won't get your money.
She had to make them smell her perfume.
So that was her very first, I think, protest. And I think that it was so successful for her, really is again, between what happened with her mother and this, but really pushed her into knowing, she got that sense that you can change things.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go along with the status quo or what people give you.
And she got it fairly young, too.
She did. This picture talks about her really coming into the civil rights movement. And the gentleman she's pictured with are four high NAACP officials in their respective states. And again, you can see she's the only woman in the picture.
Yep.
And everything you see Mrs. Craft wearing in these pictures in this house, she made.
I was just about to ask that.
Hats, suits, dresses, she made them all. At one time, She had a contract with the Red Cross to make their blazers and hats.
What?
Yeah. Yep. So.
That's dope. I love it.
Over here is where we kind of start with her coming to Dallas. And when Juanita Craft first came to Dallas was when the Ku Klux Klan had the largest Klan chapter in the country right here in Dallas, Texas. So she got here in 1923, and they had gotten here in the early 20s as well. This is from an interview where she talks about kind of the atmosphere when she first came. You would hear the common expression, well, did you hear about the lynching last night? As if they were talking about an ill neighbor. I couldn't understand the meaning of lynching and burnings and how you could take a human being and torture him, drawing him down the street burning. This is the atmosphere in which Juanita Craft came into living in Dallas, Texas. It was totally segregated when I got here in '65. So I can imagine how it was when she got here in 1925 at the age of 23. So, and this again talks about the Klan Day at the Fair. Here they are in all their Klan regalia marching through the Fair Park, through the State Fair Park.
Is there any publications or anything that speaks to any activity that she would do to speak out against
Yes,
the
we're
Klan?
getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Okay.
It's a big protest for 12 years.
Okay,
we're
good.
getting there. It's in that room. And I also like to point out two more things. So the Hall of Pythias is a structure that African Americans, this is in Deep Ellum, which is right up the street, which is our premier kind of hipster part of town now, clubs, restaurants. It's just come to the forefront in the last 8 to 10 years or so, Deep Ellum. But it was always a part of this community, but not as developed at all. So they built this structure called the Hall of Pythias. The architect for it was Booker T. Washington's son-in-law. He was married to his daughter Portia, William Pittman. And they built this, it was kind of like a mall. And they enclosed their businesses in there, doctor's offices, banks, insurance companies, beauty salons, restaurants. They had a dance hall in there. So they could protect their businesses from the Klan. They felt like by enclosing them all together, they could keep track of them and keep them secure. And so that's what the Hall of Pythias was. It is still standing in Deep Ellum. It is now the Kempton Pittman Hotel. And the facade is still on the front. Okay. And then one other thing here I always like to point out. This right here is a gentleman named Alan Brooks who is being hung from the arch at the corner of, I think it's Elm and Ackerd. And so citizens of Dallas, probably mostly Klan, took this picture and made it into a postcard.
I was just about to say
that they then sold in the gift shops at the hotels in downtown Dallas. On this wall, we talk about Mrs. Craft actually coming into Dallas, getting employment here. And when she first got here, she wanted to teach school, but there was only 3 schools for African Americans. There was an elementary school, N.W. Harley. There was a junior high school, B.F. Terrell, and there was a senior high school, Booker T. Washington. And so all teaching positions that could be filled by African American teachers were filled. So she was able to find work at the Adolphus Hotel as a bell maid. Now, a bell maid is a maid that doesn't clean the rooms. It's if you have an errand to be run in the hotel, if you have clothing to be taken care of, repaired or ironed, which is right up her alley, sewing and stuff. That is what the bell maid did. Well, in her duties as the bell maid, she had to go into the gift shop and see the postcard, which I think we can all imagine what kind of reaction Juanita Craft would have had.
For sure.
One day she was called to the room of a guest to fix a collar. And when she got to that room, the guest was Eleanor Roosevelt, who, if you know anything about Mrs. Roosevelt, you know she, in her own right, was a great humanitarian as well.
Yes, she was.
They were truly women of the same ilk. They felt like all men are created equal. I mean, from totally different points of life, but they both felt the same way about their species in humans, that they're all created equal and they should all have the same opportunities. Mrs. Craft told Mrs. Roosevelt about the postcard in the gift shop. Mrs. Roosevelt had the postcard removed from the gift shop and never sold there again. Now, it was still being sold in the other gift shops in the other hotels in Dallas, but she didn't have to see it again. And she said, baby steps. That was a baby step.
That's what Mrs.
Right.
Craft said.
That was her her philosophy, which she taught us. Many baby steps will progress you, will push you forward as well.
Love it.
Small change is better than no change. She became friends with a man named A. Maceo Smith. A. Maceo Smith is one of our foremost civil rights leaders here in Dallas, too, was. Our federal building here is named after him, and there is a school named after him here in Dallas as well.
Maceo Smith.
A. Maceo Smith.
Okay.
And so together they did great things. He was instrumental in her they helped each other and helped the city to desegregate the bus lines. And then in 1955, when the Dallas Negro Chamber of Commerce, they decided to change the name from Colored People's Day at the fair to Negro Achievement Day. And then the gentleman who was over the Dallas Negro Chamber of Commerce had the nerve to say, because of that name change, stated that the state fair does not practice segregation in any manner. Well, again, imagine Mrs. Craft's hair on fire. Okay. So she took students from her youth council, and this is what they did. Every year for 12 years until the state fair was desegregated in 1967, she had her kids march outside at the entrances. And instead of Negro Achievement Day,
Appeasement.
it was Negro Appeasement Day. And that's what they put on the signs. There's one of the signs right there.
Wow.
Right here. This is one of the signs. And you can tell the kids, I always point this out because the young ladies really do look like adults. The bobby socks. And these kids were from her youth councils. This was before my time. I was probably about 3 years old then.
Okay.
2 or 3 years old.
See the bobby socks, y'all?
See? Bobby socks.
They ain't quite graduated up to stockings yet.
No.
Man, that's amazing. Movements always start with kids, though. I mean, when you think about how pivotal they've been to all the movements, whether it was in Birmingham, whether it was here, I mean, just in so many different places. Nashville with Fisk and the Freedom Riders, Tougaloo College. Like, it's always the youth that's doing it, and I love that.
Well, they would get up on the first day of the fair and have a parade down Oakland Avenue, which is now Malcolm X.
Okay.
But it was Oakland Avenue back in the day. And then they would make a right on Martin Luther King, which was Forest Avenue at the time, and go to the state fair and set up their picket lines. But they would parade through the neighborhood to let people know what they were doing. Now, honestly, it didn't stop everybody from going to the fair.
Sure.
Black people still went because it was, that one day of the year, but it still put something on their mind.
Yeah.
She was a big believer in changing people's hearts and minds, and so, but for 12 years, she actively distressed, because the State Fair of Texas is a big moneymaker for the city of Dallas.
Yeah.
So she affected their pocketbook somewhat. They finally desegregated in 1967. In 1985, when Juanita Craft died, her memorial service was held at the Hall of State on the state fairgrounds. The governor, Mark White, at the time was there. Ann Richards was there. Jim Maddox was there. That was the treasurer and the attorney general of the state. Her senator was there. Our congressperson, I was there from this neighborhood, was there. Everybody who was anybody was at Juanita Craft's memorial service, which again was held on the state fairgrounds. So you can see how her life kind of took a full circle.
It sure enough did.
I'm sure they weren't real happy with her in the 50s.
Yeah.
But they showed change by the time, she passed away.
What threats were received? Because I'm sure that they were.
Well, when she first moved into this house in 1950, houses were being bombed in this area because African Americans, this used to be white neighborhood. African Americans had started moving in right after the war, about 1947, 1948. She came in 1950 after the death of Johnny Craft. Okay. She was widowed in 1950. They were in the process of selling their house over there, and so she just kept on with the process and moved into this house. Houses were being bombed. 10 houses specifically, were bombed in this neighborhood after Juanita Craft moved in. This house was surveilled by the Texas Rangers. Her phone was tapped by the Texas Rangers because they knew she was meeting with people like Thurgood Marshall in here and lawyers to help him with his cases. This is actually the first case, Juanita Craft. I always call her Justice Marshall's roadie because when he was in town, he would need to be able to have access to lawyers who had Texas bar cards, to transportation to get around. They weren't going to let him stay at none of the hotels. No. So he had to have a place to stay, and usually it was at whatever residence Mrs. Craft had. So in 1936, he came down here to sue Dallas County in order to get us the right to sit on juries in Dallas. And in 1938, that case came to fruition, and we were able to sit on juries. Now, I'm not sure how many we sat on even after the law was passed, but that was done. Right. But what happened was they were sending out jury notices to taxpayers in Dallas, property taxpayers. Well, they didn't know if you was white or black. So when you got down to the courthouse, if you were black, they'd hand you your $3 for the day and dismiss you. Mm-hmm. And so the protest started. Mrs. Craft, A. Maceo Smith, and then in time the NAACP, they told these people just very peacefully take your $3 and go sit in the back of the courthouse.
We don't need no more input from you. Just take the money and sit.
And sit.
Be quiet.
You know. Well, that was the protest, though, to not leave.
Yeah.
Because they were dismissing them. They needed to stay
there. Yeah, they needed to stay there.
So they stayed in the courthouse.
Okay.
That's the point of that.
That was the tactic. Okay.
Yeah, that was. They dismissed them. They wanted them to
leave,
physically leave.
And they sat in the back just to, I got you.
They sat in the back.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, they couldn't pull out a gun and shoot the bailiff or anything, you know.
Yeah.
So, but peaceful protest.
I love this quote right here. I love Texas, so I made her change all her bad habits. Wow.
Well.
Good God Almighty. I love that. I got to take a picture of that, y'all. Man.
Okay, so Juanita Craft was invited to the White House 4 times by 3 different presidents. And this is the occasion of her first visit to the White House. There's Mrs. Craft, there's John Kennedy, and there's Jacqueline Kennedy. And this is on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the Emancipation Occupation in February of 1963. On November 22nd of 1963, which is the day that John Kennedy was assassinated here in Dallas, Texas, Juanita Craft was sitting with an entourage of Texas dignitaries at Market Hall, waiting to have lunch with John and Jackie Kennedy.
Oh, wow.
Here's what she had to say about the day. Mm-hmm. We were parked and we were seated, and of course we kept waiting and waiting. And it was some time before it was announced, the shooting of President Kennedy. I was stunned. I couldn't conceive of this kind of thing happening in America. Of course, in the next 5 or 6 years, we would become used to it. Mm. But, you know, by then, Kennedy had been killed in 1963. Yeah. And then there was kind of a little hiatus, and then it started all over.
Back up again.
So, but just imagine how important she must have been to have been in that entourage in 1963. He was on a campaign swing. And even back then, if you were courting the black vote here in Dallas, you had to go through Juanita Craft. And then she was invited to the White House in 1964 for the signing of the Civil Rights Bill. And in 1965, she was invited to the White House for the signing of the Voters' Rights Bill.
She was there for it all.
She was there for it all. And in 1965, she was actually a guest of Thurgood Marshall. So
did she have a relationship with Mary McLeod Bethune?
You know, other people have asked me that. I've never seen in any interviews that I've read of hers or seen of hers, that she mentioned her. People ask me about that. Ask that about Rosa Parks as well.
Yeah.
I would think that, and then knowing her, if she knew people of that stature, she would have mentioned it, especially to the kids she was mentoring.
Yeah.
Because we all knew who Mary McLeod Bethune was,
Sure.
and we all knew who Rosa Parks was. So, if she did, I don't know. I will say that. I will honestly say that. I know they were all in the same business, so it's probably wouldn't be surprising if they had crossed paths or worked together. But again, I've never heard her speak of that. This wall here talks about the Sweat versus Painter case, which is the case she helped work on with, again, there's Thurgood Marshall. These are our two Dallas attorneys, C.B. Bunkley and William Durham. And that they sued the University of Texas for the right for African Americans to attend the law school. So she was instrumental in helping to integrate the University of Texas Law School. The precedents that Thurgood Marshall used during that case were used very largely during his Brown versus Board of Education case. So the precedents were kind of set through then. This depicts the Mansfield ISD, which is right outside of Fort Worth. And what happened there was Brown versus Board of Education happened in 1954. But the schools in Texas weren't fully desegregated until 1972. I finished high school in 71. We were still totally segregated, you know, but it had happened. So the Mansfield decided they were going to try it. Well, this is what the white parents did. They hung effigies on the front of the buildings. They stood in the doors when they were trying to get into the schools. And so the black parents were scared to send their children. And so they didn't. But here's them getting on the bus, Mansfield Independent School District.
That's wild.
So they just took their kids and sent them on to school in Fort Worth and said, well, we'll try again when you know, things cool off. We'll see. So this room is what I call the kids' room. Because we talk about Mrs. Craft's time with kids, and that was my time with Mrs. Craft. I just want to point out some of her beautiful millinery work. Those are a couple of hats she made.
Man.
And we changed this out from time to time. We did have her Red Cross blazer and uniform hat in there as well. We've had a coat in there that she made. And like I say, everything you see her wearing, she made.
She married.
But this room kind of depicts her time with kids. And so Juanita Craft, every year for about 20 years, she took a busload of kids. We left from right in front of this house early in the morning on a hot July morning to the NAACP National Conventions. I was fortunate to go to 3 with her. Los Angeles, Boston, and Atlantic City. The summer that we went to...
Y'all drove all the way to Jersey?
We had a bus with 30 plus kids and 8 chaperones, Juanita Craft, and a bus driver.
All the way to Jersey.
And boy, did we have a ball.
Now what year was that?
The LA convention was 1966.
Okay.
The summer of 66. The Boston convention was the summer of 67. And the Atlantic City convention was the summer of 68.
So were y'all utilizing the Negro, were y'all utilizing the Green Book?
No.
At that point?
No.
Okay, so at that point, was it just not needed? Or
I didn't even know about the Green Book. I don't know whether Juanita Craft did or not. Here's what we did. We slept on a bus. We slept all night. But during the day, so just as an example, when we went to LA, on the way to LA, we stopped at the Grand Canyon. We stopped at Carlsbad Caverns. We stopped at the Painted Desert. On the way to Boston, we stopped in Philadelphia. We stopped at Constitution Hall, the Liberty Bell. And along the way, just as an instance, we'd sleep on the bus that night. And in the morning, she would have made arrangements for us to stop at like a community center where we would have cold cereal and fruit for breakfast. And we'd make sandwiches for the rest of the day, put them in a cooler. And so we'd have food on the bus. And then we would tour those cities on the way. So we didn't sleep in a hotel. We were probably on the road for about 4 days.
Yeah.
We didn't.
But y'all were experiencing so much.
I know, and we were having a good time, and we were singing freedom songs, and just it was just really some of the best times of my life. I used to call her my Captain Kirk, because she took us to worlds that I would never have seen otherwise.
I love it.
But we would just have the best time. We wouldn't see a hotel until we got to the convention city. And then, of course, because we had worked all year to raise the money we needed to attend the convention, we would go to our rooms, attend the convention. Everything was done in parliamentary procedure, as was our youth council meetings here. And so she taught us things, again, that we wouldn't have otherwise learned.
It looks like she got some mean jump shot, too.
She got to mean everything.
Y'all see the jump shot? That looks like it's going to be
Hand
straight
over
buckets.
hand.
Yeah. She got the jump shot, too.
So this initiative over here, is one of my favorites. And we called it the Kids Can campaign. But Mrs. Craft always referred to it as the KKK. Because first of all, it got under people's skin.
Of course.
And then she also was trying to give us a good connotation for those three words. Because in our lives, we had probably never heard anything good come behind the KKK.
Yeah, for sure.
And what this was every Monday at our youth council meetings, on Mondays right back in that little house, she would show us pictures of vacant lots in the city. And we would pick one out to go clean up. You can see her here sitting in a bunch of garbage. Here's our big mountains of garbage. The city came along and partnered with us on this venture. They sent the trucks. We did the work. We filled the bags up. They sent the trucks to put the bags on, and they gave us the instruments to pick stuff up with. They also provided a pretty good box lunch. So that's what they did to help us. And then on that next Monday, after we had done our work, we would come back to the house for our meeting. She would show us pictures. Mrs. Craft showed us before and after pictures of the places we cleaned up. She said, "Look what we did. Be proud of yourselves."
She was always implementing this ideology of empowerment.
Absolutely.
Empowerment for the kids.
Because she told us we need to own our community.
Do you feel that because she was just such a powerful force that the city she kind of forced their hands to collaborate and to provide certain types of things, just because she was just an unstoppable force, it seemed like. So like when you say that, the city came and provided X, Y, and Z, because it was going to get done regardless. And so my question to you is, do you feel like because she was going to do it anyway, the city benefited, of course, from latching on to certain initiatives just because they've associated themselves with this woman who had pulled at the White House and all these other places? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think the city realized that, just like you say, it was inevitable.
It was inevitable. It's like you can't stop this train from going.
To have a figurehead like her, and to be able to have her as their ambassador, I think it just really was good for both sides.
Yeah.
I just think that her whole persona was good for both sides.
Yep.
That's really, and then she was just so powerful. I always say that for me, as a child around her then, she always made us feel powerful at a time when people conspired to make us feel powerless. And she did that for us. She told us that we lived in an underserved community. And how can you ask for help if you're not helping yourself? And that's what this initiative was basically about. That and other things we did in the community, but especially this one. So this is Juanita Craft's kitchen, and this is her table. Justice Marshall has sat around this table with her A. Maceo Smith. You can see here Louis Armstrong actually stayed in this home and the home that she had in North Dallas. Here's his picture he sent her with a thank you on it.
Wow.
This picture shows her with Eleanor Roosevelt, and after her meeting with Eleanor Roosevelt about the dastardly postcard, her and Mrs. Roosevelt remained friends for the duration of Eleanor Roosevelt's life. She passed in 1962, and actually, whenever she came to Dallas, Juanita Craft.
Yeah, right here.
was her hostess. She requested Juanita Craft to be her hostess. They remained friends. Mrs. Craft received the Eleanor Roosevelt Humanitarian Award in 1983.
Okay.
So, but this is our kitchen. There's a tray of her tomatoes. This picture depicts the celebratory dinner they had. That's Justice Marshall at the head of the table. Mrs. Craft is taking the picture, so she's out here. She's not in the picture. That's A. Maceo Smith. It's at his home in the State Thomas area. A. Maceo Smith is there. There's Justice Marshall at the head of the table. And they're celebrating the winning of the Sweat versus Painter case. And then they had tried another case called McLaurin versus Oklahoma. And they were both to desegregate educational facilities. This is my favorite quote.
Let's check it out. A child's life can be a closed door or an open sky. It's my duty to let the children see how big the sky is.
Now you see why I called her Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And she did that for us. She
Yeah.
did.
You know firsthand.
So, this depicts one of the bombings in the neighborhood.
And you said there were 10.
There were 10 in close proximity to this house. They never bombed her house. And again, I reiterate, Mrs. Craft wasn't afraid of anybody. And this is what she had to say. You are a coward. Why don't you come to my house and tell me these things to my face? When asked for comments about what was going on in her neighborhood. That is what she had to say. Because she weren't scared. She was not. And when we were with her, I remember we helped to form a youth council in Lufkin, Texas, which is a small Texas town, I think to the south and west. I'm not sure of the geography now. But she would always, so since I was one of the officers of the youth council, she would take with her the president, me, the secretary, and the treasurer, and herself, and a couple of other youth council members. And she would always say to us, we have to leave early in the morning and we have to be home before sundown.
Wow.
If it looked like we weren't getting out of Lufkin, we would just spend the night.
Just spend the night.
Yeah. And we kind of knew why she was saying that. So she was able to give us that urgency without scaring us.
Yeah.
You know, but we knew.
You knew what was going on.
We knew what was going on. Yeah. So anyway, so we come into this room, and this room talks about the last years of Juanita Craft's life. At the age of 73, she decided to run for the City Council of Dallas. 73. Most people are, you know, kind of chilling. Not her. I don't think she ever chilled. So, of course, one of the biggest things they said about her was she was too old. And her counter to that was, the best wine is old wine. And then she won that term, and then ran for another one, and won that one. Back at you. You know, how do you like me now? So she served 2 terms, and while she was on the city council, she took flack from people in her community who felt like she should just be there working for them. But Juanita Craft was truly a universal humanitarian.
Yeah.
Again, she believed that all people were created equal. And at that time, the LGBTQ community was coming into prominence in Dallas, Texas, over in what is now called Uptown. Well, she had a good friend named Harriet Earhart, who was on the school board. And Harriet found out that, and Mrs. Craft remembers on the city council, that the Dallas Independent School District was actually discriminating against people that they could find were in and of that community. And what they would do is they'd send Dallas police officers to the parking lots of bars frequented by the LGBTQ community and restaurants, and they would take down license plates. And if they traced a license plate back and found that the owner of that license plate was a employee of DISD, they were summarily fired.
Oh, wow.
No questions asked.
Done.
Done. So Harriet Earhart wanted to stop that, and she spoke. Her and Juanita Craft were good friends. They spoke. They did finally end up getting, things happening where that stopped happening. But one of the things that Juanita Craft did, she found out that Dallas Police Department was harassing businesses run by people or owned by people in that community. And what they would do is they would walk into bars and intimidate people. So what Juanita Craft started doing, she would go to those bars. She didn't drink. She'd sit at the bar and take down the numbers of those badges of those police officers and turn them in at her city council meetings. She also would, because she was elderly or older, the city provided her with a car.
Okay.
She didn't drive, but she had a car and a driver, and she would take that car and park in that parking lot so her license plate number would be turned in with all the license plate numbers. And the people at the city were wondering, what is our car doing there? You know, the organization of those guys that owned those bars and restaurants was called the Tavern Guild. They loved Juanita Craft because they knew that she was fighting for their rights. And they made sure, she loved buttermilk, and they made sure they kept cold buttermilk on their bars for Juanita Craft when she came into their establishments. And in Dallas, there is, again, this museum is named after Juanita Craft. She has a rec center, a park, which she couldn't even attend when she first moved to Dallas, Texas, because there was only 2 parks for Negroes then. So the house, the park, the rec center, post office, and the reading room at the Eric Johnson Library, which houses her archives. This was the backyard, and we had benches much like these when I was a kid back here, these 2. That is actually I actually hung clothes on that clothesline.
Yeah.
That's the end part of the old clothesline. There's her barbecue pit. This space over here, which is the Juanita Craft, this is where the garden that she grew food started, right here at the end of the little house, and it went all the way around here. That's where the garden was. There was a house. She had a neighbor there. The city bought that plot and tore down that house and built what is now, that is the Juanita Craft Memorial Garden.
Okay. And was it always this acreage, or was it more at one point?
No, it was just,
So
it was just, when I was a kid, it was just up to here.
Okay.
It was up, that's the driveway, and that was it.
Okay.
There was another house on
Right in this lot.
right where that grass is. There was a house there in the backyard and the front yard and stuff like that. The house first opened in I want to say '94. I wasn't here. I was living in San Francisco at the time, but they opened it as the Juanita Craft House, and it was basically just her house. The beds were still in the bedrooms with the quilts on them.
Okay.
The living room looked like it did when I was a kid. And when in 2018, a big storm kind of gutted the house. And so then we were trying to figure out what to do. And we thought the museum, that's probably the best thing, because then we can really tell people who she was and what she did. So that's when, so the museum has been open since May of 2023, but the house itself has been open in some form or another since about 1994.
Okay. And it looks just the same.
But you can actually go online and research and get the exact dates if you want.
Yeah, we'll do, for sure.
Yeah.
And so it looks the exact same? There weren't any add-ons since you...
Well, it looks cleaner and newer.
Yeah.
But this same crepe myrtle was here. You can tell how old it is because all the bark is gone.
Yeah.
See, this is how trees look when they get that old.
Yeah.
That one over there too was there.
Okay.
That one on the corner. This part of the lawn wasn't her lawn because that was the lawn
Yeah, that
of
was
the
for the other house.
So this was just her lawn right here.
Right.
The bricks weren't around there. She had a white picket fences around the bushes.
Okay.
And I think there were more flowers.
So do you remember the families that lived on each side?
Well, over there, I don't remember that family, but this family was the Davenports, and 2 of those children over there were in the youth council and the young lady, Ellen, is actually in the picture with me. Her daughter is Juanita Craft's namesake.
Okay.
Juanita Jewel Craft Davenport Cook.
Wow.
Because she kind of, Ellen was one of those other children that were in the house a lot more than the rest of the youth council. So because they lived next door, and she and I were pretty good friends.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to be, they're mowing the yard over here, so we can finish up inside if you don't mind.
Okay, no, I don't
slow
mind.
the brothers down.
I don't mind, come on.
As you all may have heard, they're doing some maintenance to the lawns right now, so we're back inside. And I always ask individuals after my visit, like, what is it about this site that should gravitate people to it? And what is it that you hope people leave with whenever they do leave this specific site?
Well, I think they should gravitate to this site because it is, for most people who will come here, it's history they haven't heard. It's a story that I think is important. It's a story of a woman who always believed that things could change and who worked all of her adult life to change those things. Sacrificed greatly. I'm sure with her talent and intelligence, she could have done other things. But she decided that her passion in life was to see to it that her fellow humans lived as well as they possibly could.
And what was the biggest lesson that you got from her with your years with her? What was the biggest, what stood out the most?
Patience, and you know, she used to say, you have to change people's hearts and minds. And those were, but patience was the big one. Any little change that you could affect was change. She believed that we should always make sure we knew what our government was doing. She was really huge in voters' rights, you know, and she would probably be very disappointed in what's going on now, you know. But she worked for all of that, and so I think that is her main thing. She always taught us to use our voice. Use your voice, she would say. Just a real quick story. I believe I was in my sophomore year in high school. I wasn't a senior, but we found out that a Chevrolet dealership here in Dallas was going to ask Dallas high school students to take pictures with their new models for their fall promotion campaign. But we found out they hadn't asked any black schools. So we were unhappy. And we bought that to Juanita Craft. And that's when she said, use your voice, let them know you're unhappy. And so what we decided to do, and we actually, it's on record in her archives, because the minute books that we took our minutes in during our meetings are in her archives. So I can actually see 2 years of minutes I actually took at youth council meetings.
Beautiful.
So what she instructed us to do was write a letter to this Chevrolet dealership and tell them, first of all, our parents drive cars. Second of all, our parents drive Chevrolets. Third, they have kids in high school. And fourth, we can let all of our neighbors and all of our rest of our people know just how you guys are behaving.
Treating us,
In other words, hit them in their pocket, because that's one of the biggest things.
That's the language they understand.
So we wrote them this letter. We wrote the dealership the letter. We sent them the letter. Instead of them inviting us to participate in the campaign, they squashed the whole campaign. They unasked the white kids and didn't ask us. We kind of felt bad because we felt we had taken something away from the white kids, and Mrs. Craft was like, please, no, not at all. You did what you were supposed to do. You used your voice. They were the ones who decided the outcome. So don't feel bad about that. And then she also instructed us, now she knew, and this was before she was on the youth council, the city council, she knew that this could not happen, but she said, write a letter to your city council and ask them, can they come up with laws that would keep that kind of discrimination from happening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she knew that the city council couldn't do that because it was a private business. But she was again teaching us how to use our voice.
Absolutely.
This is the place that you take your grievances to. You elect these people, you pay their salaries, you know, your parents and stuff. So these are the things that she taught us. But it was always use your voice, be patient, and do what you can to change hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Because that is what is going to affect the most change.
I love it. I love the lesson. Can you tell people how to contact and to view more stuff about the site, the website?
Okay, you can just Google Juanita Craft House,
Yeah.
just like that. Juanita, and everything will come up.
Gives you everything you need.
Everything you need. And then it will also show you how to, you can take one of those as well.
Oh, brochure?
Yeah, it will also show you
Boom.
how to book a tour,
Okay.
and then how to, if you want to make a donation, you know.
Okay.
So.
Excellent. Well, this has been an excellent tour, very thorough. I greatly appreciate you,
Oh,
Ms.
you're
Patricia,
welcome.
for providing this education for us. And like I always tell you all, if you like this type of content, please to make sure to subscribe and share. I will post some information in the caption about the house, as well as how you can donate and where it's located at here in Dallas, Texas. And so, peace and blessings. Thanks for watching.